We're back with another episode of our marriage and dating Q&A series, and we are on part 3 of marriage. So this is a question that could go in either the married or dating category, but we'll place it here. Why do you think sex should be safe for marriage, and why is it important in a healthy marriage?
One of the things that I found to be true was if you've had sex before marriage and then you end up finding your life partner later, now you're going to compare one person against another. And that's not what God intended for you to have to start with. And it's not fair to the individual. So sometimes that's a big obstacle. Not that you can't be restored or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you already admit that it's there. Now what do you do with it? Because if you have sex with someone else, then you're going to go, that's not as good as what I had before. That's not the way it was. That's not, you name whatever you want to name it. But it's a very unfair approach to another individual.
When you're making a decision, when you're trying to make a decision based on having sex with someone, I mean, you need to think about your future. You need to think about not only what you're going to carry with you, but what they're going to carry with them. And in God's sovereignty, He meant for the intimacy and the sex to be between a husband and a wife. And really that kind of joining together, I believe it should be like cementing, to not be separated. And so when it's casual, think about when you try to separate cement. I mean, there's trauma.
Yes.
There's brokenness.
It's never the same.
There's shrapnel that goes all over the place. If you hit cement or concrete, there are pieces that fly off and it's wounding. And so that's not something that the Lord intended to happen in intimacy, in sex. He meant for the two to become one, to never be separated. And I think, casual sex and sex outside of marriage is very wounding. Even if you end up marrying that person, you've still experienced something outside of what the Lord intended it to be. So I think it can still be wounding.
I think there's a very practical, there's lots of very practical reasons why you should wait until marriage to have sex. If you're married, you have a foundation, you have a commitment that undergirds everything. And so you're going to have the same person to come back to. And you may think, well, that's boring. I want multiple people and I want variety and all this other nonsense that the world puts out there as that's going to be enjoyable for you. But there are real depths to an individual that you will never know or uncover unless you have a committed relationship with someone. And you won't know how to please someone or how they can please you unless you have conversations, and that you have it's trial and error sometimes, when you get started. So you're figuring out, well, what makes her happy? Well, what makes me happy? How do we work together? How do we fit together physically? So sex inside of marriage allows you the security and the time to be able to explore the beautiful garden of wonders that God has within each of your bodies. And I mean, there's a lot of songs out there that describe sex, but most of those are sex outside of marriage. And the world tries to paint this picture that sex is more glamorous and more wonderful in every other way except the way that God intended it. And it's wrong. And it's not just wrong because God says it's wrong, because it is, but it's also wrong because it's not as good. It's just not as good. And I can safely say that sex after 13 years of marriage is better than sex after the first year of marriage, because we know each other better. And it has taken a decade or more to learn certain things about one another and how to make one another happy. And that's worth being committed to one another for. And then it's beyond the physical. Of course, we think of sex as mostly physical, but sex is far more than physical. And there's this real beautiful emotional, mental, and spiritual bond that takes place when you're together with the same person that goes deeper and deeper every single time. And the point is, you have each other. And it's worth putting the effort in to try to be with one another sexually, and not just coast through life without it. It's important.
You know, I don't think we can really talk about sex without using the word intimacy, because intimacy is so much more than a physical act, you know. And the Lord wants us to be intimate with Him first and foremost, to, you know, to bring honor to Him. And for Brad and I, the intimacy is in the little things, you know. And this may sound really, really crazy and kind of corny, but intimacy for me would be for Brad to cook like he wants to cook before I get home from work, so that he can spend time with me. See, that's intimacy to me. He's thinking about me, he's planning, you know, that's intimacy. There's not been anything physical yet. There probably will be, you know, but I'm just saying that when there's thoughtfulness there, you know, that begins the intimacy.
After I rub her feet.
Yeah. So, you know, that's a big word,
Wash the
intimacy.
dishes.
You wash the dishes.
Clothes in the dishes.
We're talking dirty now.
But really today in the time that we live in, sex is all physical. And there's so much more to a marriage relationship than the physical part. Although God created the physical part and He wants us to enjoy that. And you add on top of that the intimacy, there's nothing like it. There is nothing like an intimate and sexual relationship with your married partner
And
at all.
I think that's different with each person, because it's got to be. That's what so blows my mind about how He made us. Everybody's got their own DNA structure with what it is, and if it's a foot rub, oh my, let me do that, because it's going to be okay. But it relaxes her. She likes it. I'm like, okay, well, I can do this all night, you know. So, but I mean, those little things that you do, you know, when Marie was talking about mundane, I thought, hey, mundane, that's something you done found. You know, that's sweet right there.
Yes.
That's dialed in.
I don't think that we can move on from this until we talk about that God likens His relationship with us, His communion with us, with the physical act of having sex with someone. It has always blown my mind. Talk about intimacy. And so why would you cheapen something that He puts such high importance on? There's just so much potential there for learning how much he loves us, how deeply he wants to be connected with us, knowing that the person you're with is not going to leave, like he's not going to leave us. And I think for me, that has been one of the biggest benefits in knowing that Gert and I have not had partners apart from each other, is that we're not going anywhere. We're there for each other. And it's a safe place.
Well, and I'd like to say too that, you know, in the sweetness of Gert and Marie and Jonathan and Taylor's relationship of only being with each other, Brad and I don't have that same story. Brad and I were not virgins when we started dating, either one of us. But look what the Lord can do.
Yes.
Look what you can have with each other. If you put Him in the center and you allow Him to redeem what has been taken, then He can make it pure again for each other.
You know, intimacy cannot happen without trust. So it's like Robert was saying one time, that, you know, it takes a lifetime to build up trust. It can be ruined in a second. So it's not taking it not lightly. It's actually extremely important, because I don't think you can have intimacy if there's no trust. The two is hand to, you know, the trust is the bedrock of intimacy.
And if you've broken that trust, or if your spouse has broken that trust with you, it takes time to restore that, but it's worth restoring.
Yes.
We led a group of 35 young men in the Conquer series a couple years back, and faced a lot of the demons that were corrupting and hurting them. And if you let those things continue to fester, it will only get worse. Sex is so important that the devil has spent a lot of his resources and time to corrupt and screw it up for you. And you owe it to yourself to get it right. It's worth, your marriage is worth fighting for, you know. And I just feel as a pastor, I guess, you feel the sensitivity to people, and like myself, who have failed at times. And we need to know the Lord's mercies are new every morning, and great is His faithfulness. That you're first married to Him, and that's the relationship you can always fall back on. And that should be the strength that keep you moving forward in your marriage and in your relationships.
I will add, if you have experienced unfaithfulness in marriage, or you do have a spouse who has been unfaithful, we have done a video called Walking Through an Affair that you can find on our YouTube channel or on our Facebook, and I would highly recommend that if this is an area that you are currently walking through, that you go check out that video.
So I alluded to this earlier, I think, but as a man, you know, it's my responsibility, and a lot of men don't take this, but I have decided to take it in my home. And so if there's laundry that needs to be done and it's not done, then either I'm going to do it, or I'm going to find a plan and put something together where we can figure out how do we get this laundry done. But it is not me pointing my finger at my wife going, you need to get this laundry done. Where are you? What are you doing? And why isn't this happening? It's and I think the Lord actually does this really well, has done at least with me and having children, that He gives you a whole lot of messes that you didn't create that you have to clean up. And in a lot of different ways, most notably the poopy diaper, but a lot of messes that you constantly have to clean up, that you're not responsible, that you didn't make, but you are responsible for. And I think that's the difference is, as a father and a husband, I'm going to take responsibility for the messes that are in my family, wherever they are, and however they present themselves. My wife's not happy, if she's depressed, if she's down, it's on me to try to figure out. Now, it's not on me to make her happy, but it's on me to find out, why are you not happy, and is there something that we can do and plan together to fix what's going on. But it is my responsibility. She is my responsibility. My children are my responsibility. My home is my responsibility. She's my helpmeet. I would be doing all of these things without her if she was not here. But she's not somewhere far away. She is here. So I can appreciate her, and I can, value her and respect her and love her. And like, if we have things that need to be done, and I have only a 20% capacity because I've had a really long day at work, or my back is thrown out and I literally physically can't do it, then either she makes up for the 80%, or we have to figure out a plan to figure out how do we, because maybe she's only got 30% and I've got 20%. That only makes 50%. We got to make up 50% somehow. So we better come up with a plan to fill that gap. Somehow we've got to get that other stuff. And for me to go and expect her to give 80% just because I only have 20% is a false expectation. And I think that's where a lot of marriages fail, because we're looking at the other person to make up the difference when we really maybe we don't have the difference in the two of us.
It's just teamwork. I mean, it really is. It's a relationship. It's not one-sided one way or the other. We get these ideas of what the wife's role is and the husband's role is, but it's teamwork. It's us being one. We are one. So for me to take out the garbage, because that's the guy's job. I mean, for me to roll our garbage can down, and for Jonathan to do laundry, and I mean, it's got to be done. So we have to work together to do that.
And it's not, you did this, so I'll do this, or I did this, so you
Oh
did
my
that.
goodness!
That
You
will
gotta
get you
stop
in
that. You gotta
trouble.
stop that. You have to stop doing that.
You can't try to
It's
keep
not
the
going to be
scales
even.
balanced.
It will never be even, no matter how much you want it to be even.
And if you're trying to,
You
then
did it
you're-
this time.
yeah,
Now you do
yeah,
it. No, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
Just serve.
Just serve. Yeah.
Just serve. And if you both, if you think of it this way, I'll do it so you don't have to.
Yeah.
And if you're both thinking that way, that's a good marriage.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much for sharing some very helpful advice for all of us and insight.